Okay, we're going to be going through our routine today. And so in our routine, if you have a chair would be really great to work with some of the exercises. And if you have a couple of weights, these are just some 4-pounders. And remember, if you don't have actual weights, a half gallon is about 4 pounds. A gallon of water is about 8 pounds. And then you've got various cans around the house. This larger than normal can is about a pound and a pound and a half or so. So you've got some things that you can use, and also knowing that you might not have any equipment at all. I'll be describing some things that you could do in case you just ended up someplace where there was no such thing as a weight and no such thing as a chair. So I'm changing up our routine just a little bit from it's been the last couple of weeks. I think that we'll be enjoying having a chance to do things a little differently. And so I'll have plenty of options available that I will show to you as far as how to do things, but a little bit of difference today, keeping in mind that I know we're all different strengths. I know that we've all got different issues with knees or shoulders or the back or things like that. And so I want you to take good care of yourself today and make the choices that seem appropriate to you. And when I offer you a chance to increase your intensity, choose that, but also know that you're doing great even if you don't choose to increase your intensity. So in our warm-up as we get started, let's stand with our feet about hip distance wide. Let's warm up the back and the shoulders by twisting, letting the arms flare outward. This also lets you know that you have enough room around you that you can go through the experience of the training without problems. So pyramidal sprint swings outward. Great to loosen up back, great to loosen up the shoulders. Keep your breathing in and out very deep. The deeper the breath, the more energy your body will have in order to do the actions in the exercises. So nice little swings of the arms. And then we're going to take the arms, we're going to lift them up, and we're going to let them come down. So we're going to get a nice up and down action with our arms, just warming things up, loosening stuff up, alerting us that there might be problems in case we want to avoid something. And so always pay attention, because remember, we're a moving target. We're not the same as we were yesterday, and we won't be the same tomorrow. The things we do for about a 40-hour window are going to be having a more profound effect on us. Bend those knees, rock your weight back onto the heels, lose your balance a little bit. Deliberately lose your balance toward the toes. Go into a crouch, let your knees bend. Because when we're using actions in weight training, it's likely that we would be in an awkward position. We might lose our balance. And so let's train our body to anticipate the loss of balance. Put one foot forward, go into a crouch, lower that center of gravity in order to help you recover your balance better. We'll go the other way. And that's good. That's just warming us up a little bit. Let's warm up some of the major muscle areas. We stand, we take a deep breath in, and as we exhale, we push those palms firmly together. Get the chest muscles active. Press, 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 exhaling, and then inhale. And we're going to do it again. Nice firm pressure. We're going to go from one side to the other. So start the pressure. Inhale. And again, nice exhale. So we exhale when we're feeling effort. And then we go the other way. Some people say, I don't exhale when I'm feeling effort. I said, are you breathing? Because that's the most important thing. Exhale. Great. Lift up the shoulders. Squeeze back. We're going to try and bring those shoulder blades together. Nice squeeze back. Exhale. And then forward. Broaden shoulder blades. Deep breath in. And then we'll reach. We'll squeeze back. We'll exhale. And forward. Inhale. And again, the reach, squeeze back, the exhale. And then we'll release that apart. Have your feet a little wider. Press those feet and knees outward. Engage your outer hips deliberately. Pull in the core. Get used to pulling in the core when you're doing activities. The chest stays up as the shoulders lower. And we're going to tilt to the side, but keep the pelvis at the center. Lift the rib cage. Lift the arm up. Stretch and inhale. Exhale. Pull yourself up and out. Press out those feet again. Pull in the belly, chest up, and shoulders down. The tilt. The arm lifting, the stretch, the inhale, the exhale, pull yourself up and out. And now take a wide stance and bend those knees. We're going to take the shoulder across our body, gently stretching as we breathe. And then we're going to go across the other way, stretch and breathe. We'll take it to the first side again. Inhale, open up those ribs. And exhale. And then reach across, inhale, open up the ribs. and exhale. Now come to center, let your hands come all the way down. Shift your weight to one side. Let's stretch that inner thigh a little bit. Breathing deeply. If your legs aren't too far enough apart, you may not feel the stretch in the inner thigh, so you can just reach that leg a little further out there if you want. We don't want a strong stretch, just something gentle. First side again. Second side again. And then coming back to center, hands on those knees, we come back up and we take our feet in to about shoulder distance wide because we're going to practice a few squats. We're going to put the weight at our heels and our arms are going to go forward and we're going to squat down and then press into those heels and come back up again. So the squat, the shoulders and the hips travel at the same pacing down. So we're coming down, arms reaching forward, quite a nice action to help us. But when the arms aren't available, the squat changes. The effort to create the chest staying lifted and the weight on the heels intensifies when the arms are not available. So we'll do a few of those. And if we're in a position such as when we have our arms up and we squat our backs in more of an extended position, you may find that again, it's difficult to maintain the weight on your heels, but definitely worth the effort. Very nicely done. That has warmed us up and it's getting us ready for our first activity. And I'm going to have you position a chair. So you're going to make your chair available to you. I saw someone left me a message. Let me check and see what that message is. Can you make Julie full screen? You certainly can make me full screen. And that would be, instead of the gallery view, the active speaker view. So if you want to create an active speaker view, I'll be more full screen for you. That should work. Our first action is going to be for the legs, and this is going to be for both the quads and the hamstring area. And it's called a Bulgarian split squat. Bulgarian split squat. It's going to look a little bouncy, and so if you have two chairs, you're going to have one in front of you to give you some more balance. But we're going to be putting our foot back on the chair, and we're going to have to figure out our distance that we would travel forward. So one foot is going to be forward, and the other leg is going to be positioned so that it's touching the chair like this. Now, at this point, if I come downward, which I'm going to be doing, this knee goes well forward, and I don't want it to be that far forward. So I'm going to take my foot just a little bit more forward. So there's a little bit of a figuring out and balance of this action. And as I said, if you have a chair in front of you, it makes it a little easier as well. So we got our leg back there, and the idea here is we're going to try and drop with a 45-degree angle of our upper body, come down, and then back up again. And of course, this leg, the one we're standing on, is going to feel most of it, but we will possibly feel a stretch here. If that leg is a lot further back, you'll feel more stretch here than you'll feel the power in this leg. I'm keeping weight on the supporting heel. Our goal is to do about 10 of these, but you know when you're first starting out with something, you may not want to do all 10 in a row. You may want to switch and just give it a little bit of a break. And so I'm going to put my other leg back and up on the chair. And as I said, if I had two chairs, I'd be even more balanced. And so I want to make sure, although this knee is going to go forward, it's not going to go extremely forward of the line of the toe. And you got to pay attention to what your knee is feeling. So I'm not trying to lean extremely forward. I'm not completely upright. There's about a 45-degree lean. And oddly enough, as weird as this is and hard for us to get used to, it's a really good activation of the legs that usually does not bother the knee as much as, say, a standing lunge position would be. So I'll show it to you. Again, we're trying for about 10 of these. And remember, awkwardness is a part of the learning cycle. We feel extremely awkward at first. This is going to really challenge our balance as we're coming into the Bulgarian split squat. I'm keeping weight on the supporting leg, as the left leg. The heel is pressing down. And I'm feeling a very mild stretch right here. And if I keep the pressure very strongly on my heel, I'm more likely to feel it in the glute muscle. So I get in position and down and back up. Once we get more used to the actions of this, there won't be as much loss of balance, but to challenge yourself in the way that's most comfortable. So you do 10 of those, and you catch up with that, and I see I got another question going on here. Let's see what we got here. What is a good alternative to this? My chairs are all metal and I am outside. You know, a good alternative to that for right now would just be a standard. You just take a leg back, you go down into a little bit of a squat. You don't do it in such a way that it creates a strong challenge for your leg, for your knees. So a simple squat could be used in place of the Bulgarian split squat. And I'll show you that as well in round 2. Although simple squats tend to irritate the knee if we're not careful with them. All right, so again, simple squat is just simply here, coming down. There's a little more straight down in this, then coming back up again. All right, so we're sort of finishing up with that, and we're going to go into the second activity now, and it's called a kettlebell lift, but very few of us actually ended up with kettlebells. Any weight will do, although what's rather interesting is that a gallon, and you may have a gallon jug around you, you fill it up whatever amount that you want. A gallon works really great as a kettlebell. So I'm going to show you with the kettlebell gallon that I have, as well as how to do it with just a simple weight. And this is called a kettlebell lift. And what we do is we take our feet wide, and we're holding the weight, whatever weight we have, and we're going to come down in a little bit of a squat, and we're going to bring that weight up, tilt until we're pressing it upward, and then coming back down again. I'll step back further so that in the camera view you can see all the way to the lift. So down, and I take the arm up, and I turn so that my palm is facing upward. And a lot of things about kettlebell is just basically trying to get us to do a squat. That's it. So that's it with something that would be used like a kettlebell. If I had a weight, well, it's even more simple with the weight. And since I started off in my hand, it works just fine. I just come down and I take, and even though I don't need to, I turn and I press up. And so it's down. Now you say, okay, that's bothering my knees to do that squat. That's fine. And you just go down and up. And you don't even do the squat part. You're just doing a downward and an upward. Now I'm going pretty fast. So if I wanted to do it at a nice, slow pace, the action would be down and up. And down and up, nice and smooth. Or if I didn't want to do the squat, down and up. And again with, I'll use my little half gallon jug here. And it's down and up. Or without the squat, down and up. Remember too, the squat doesn't have to be very deep. I could just do a very slight squat and I'd be working my legs just a little bit. So it doesn't have to be all the way down. It could just be that we're doing something partially. All right. So we're just trying to challenge ourselves at our own personal level, not at some idealized level of experience or being. It's where we are right now. And so you should have felt that, well, that's an unusual action in any case to get the arms pretty activated. Very good. Now we're going to be working with the core. The side of our waist is our target right here between the rib cage and the pelvis, in the space in between. It encompasses actually front and back of the body regions here. It's a grouping of muscles, one overlying the other. It's called the oblique muscle structure. We're going to be doing a side tilt. And I'm going to show it to you without any weights at all. And the concept is we keep our pelvis in the center, so the ribs have to move toward the pelvis, okay? So I'm going to do it without any weights at all. I push the feet and the knees outward. I engage the outer hip. Pull in the core, arms point down, and the ribs are going to tilt one way. And then I come back up. I tilt it to the point that the side that I'm tilting away from is in a little bit of a stretch. I'm still long, though. I'm pulling up as I'm tilting. All right, so I'm creating a tilt. This is no weights at all. And then there's another method if even if I had a single weight. In fact, the single weight method is sort of interesting because you do one side at a time. You press out, belly in, chest up, shoulders down. You don't move the pelvis, you tilt, and then you pull up as far as you can to the other side. So you're pulling away from this weight. And that's considered that you're working the one side that is pulling away from the weight. Okay? And then you could then do the other side 10 repetitions. So you go into the loading phase, and that's the active phase. Here's the loading phase. Loading phase is when you're in the stretch. And then active phase is when you're pulling away from that weight. And your pelvis just stays in the center. And so this is just adding a little bit of effort. If you had 2 weights and you wanted to do it, the 2-weight method, you're both loading and activating at the same time. So you press out, belly in, chest up, shoulders down. So there's a bit of a tilt. You keep your spine long even as you're tilting, and a bit of a tilt. Just make sure your hips are not responding to the action. They're staying in the center line. All right, so we're getting nice activation. No weights, 1 weight, 2 weights. It's a really good thing. It does just take a different amount of time if you're using the single weight, because you don't want to just do it one-sidedly. You want to make sure that you've got the loading phase and the active phase in that. But it's a pretty profound thing for the side of our waist, because it turns out in life we don't do a lot of this tilt. And because we're pressing our legs active and keeping this outer hip very strongly engaged, then our outer hip is part of it too. If we're doing what we should do and pulling in that core, then the other parts of the abdominal core are also active while we're getting that space in between our ribs and our pelvis. So we're doing a nice work with that. And of course, you watch out for any back issues, any jamming sensation. You're still trying to elongate as you're creating the side-to-side tilt. And that's very good. Next thing we're going to do is going to involve our chest muscles, and I'm going to call it a floor chest press. And if you have 2 weights, this is great. What we'll do is we'll be reclined, and we'll be using 2 weights in our hand. When we're at the floor with these 2 weights with the elbows flaring outward, it's called a chicken press. And so apparently chickens, pretty strong in their chest muscles, right? We're going to come down onto our back. And I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to show you if you have no weights or something else if for some reason reclining is a problem. Now, when I recline backward and I intend to do chest work, I'm going to keep my knees bent, because to stretch the legs out puts the back in a very strongly extended position, altering the shape of the pelvis. It's best to have the knees bent. And if you wanted to flatten your back to the floor, you can, but the neutral position of the back slightly away from the floor is a good one too. I'm going to start with my arms out at about a 45-degree angle from my chest, both arms, and my fists are facing upward, straight up above, to not rocked in any position, straight up above. And I'm going to create an action of turning, and I'm going to push up and bring the hands toward the middle, and then go out slowly at that 45-degree from the top of the shoulder and climb back down. And then I'm pushing up, and because I'm using these smaller weights, I'm going very slow in order to keep the action in the chest muscles and to give me the right feel of activity. I'm going to pull in my core. Now, if you're comfortable with that, there's a little bit of an addition to this. Is that when you're going up, you stretch the shoulders up away from the floor. It's going to get stronger engagement to that underlying muscle known as serratus anterior. And then we come back out. Now, it is quite possible. Let's just say you only had 1 weight. It's quite possible to do this just with the 1 weight and do 1 side at a time. And that's actually pretty good training, okay? So you just got 1 weight, you can do the 1 weight action. If, let's say, for some reason you do not want to recline down and your head's stuffy, maybe the floor is, just a total wreck. You just don't want to get down on it because you're outside or something like that. Then my suggestion is to use some form of a chest press. And there's one against the wall, or I guess if you're outside a tree, you can do this, and I'll use the wall that's right here just in view. Place my hands not at shoulder height, but a little below the height of the shoulder. I stand over the feet initially. I push my hands toward the midline like I'm trying to squeeze a wrinkle into the wall. I flare the elbows outward, letting my chest and forehead come to the wall, and then I push backward, and my shoulders and the hips travel the same. So there's this toward the wall, elbows flare, and then when I'm going away from the wall, it's like I'm trying to wrinkle the wall. Now, as well, a chest press can be done down, and you just place your knees down. And instead of being in a tabletop, you work your way outward until you're in what's called a kneeling plank. Shoulders can be, hands can be whatever distance wide to the shoulder. And you just come outward and you push your hands toward each other. So that would be similar to a floor-based chicken press versus just a chest press at the wall, at the floor. It's going to target the same muscle area. And you may just prefer working with the concept of the push-up versus working with, you know, if you don't have a 2-pound weight and you think that's not going to challenge me, then you can meter out the challenge. The wall, you can just push harder if you want it to be more challenging, if you don't want to kneel. And so lots of different things that activate the chest muscles. So chest press at the floor, push-ups at the wall, or push-ups at the floor. Really good idea. Okay. So when we finish up with the chest work, we're going to be working with our legs again. And this one goes by the delightful name of the monster walk. And it's often done with a strap around the legs, either down near the ankle or up near the knee, and a circular strap, a strap that's bound together. But I'm going to show you it where I believe probably a lot of us do not have a strap. But, you know, if you've ever done something in a recovery, you know, physical therapy, you may actually have one of those therapeutic bands or straps that you can tie into a circle and place it around your legs. And all that does is it adds a little bit more resistance to what's going on. Now I'm going to show you the action that we could do if it turns out the quote-unquote monster walk does not work for us. It's simple side stepping. So I'm going to be at one end of my mat like so, and I'm going to step to the side, having my knees a little bent, and I'm going to step close and step close. And even without resistance, you do enough of these, and you're going to know that you've got outer hip, our target right here, glute medius, glute minimus. So we're coming into this. You could also make the step where you're just sort of doing that, and that gets a little bit more active, okay? That sort of looks like a monster walk, too. So just little tiny steps, but ooh, does it engage? Now, that would be the side stepping. But the monster walk is not so much that sidestepping. I start the monster walk with my feet, you know, fairly narrow hip distance. And I'm going to be taking a step laterally backward. So I'm going to step back and step 2, step forward, step 2. And then I step back this other direction, step back, step forward, step. And that's the simple. My knees are unlocked, but not extremely bent. I'll show it again. Step to it, step forward. And you count each time you're stepping back. That would be, you know, just 1, right? And so I've completed 1/2 of 1. Now, if I wanted to be a little bit more intense and I don't have a strap, then I go into a deeper position. I step back further in a deeper position. So I step back and I'm in a squat and I step 2. And I step forward in that squat and I step 2. And it's immediately I feel more. So I step back, but of course that's going to task those knees. So you got to be really careful. Step forward, great. So it's never wrong to engage that core. And like I say, even without a strap, your legs are saying, oh, what's going on here? Oh. And so you're just, you know, making these exaggerated and pausing a little bit and trying to be stealthy with the action, not just slam your feet down. Stealth. Oh, stealth costs a lot in muscle effort. Everyone's distance that they step is, you know, based on a lot of things like leg lengths and stuff like that. You'll be feeling this here in the front of the leg, outer leg, maybe back, maybe here, but you should not be feeling like you're making something miserable for the knees. So that's why we have the alternate in case the monster walk doesn't work. Either step and close step, like so, or step a little tick-tocky, which strangely enough works even harder, even though it's not as big of a step. And so that's great. That's our monster walk, either sidestepping or that back pattern stepping. And it'll get that heart rate up a little bit because of the movement of it. And so there we go. So fun with monstering there. When you've monstered your way through the walk, the chair is going to be convenient. You can do this standing, but I sort of like the concentration that sitting down gives. You can sit on a chair, physio ball, or something like that. And we want a small weight. And remember, if you don't have a small weight, a can of vegetables, and this is crushed pineapple, it's going to have a smaller weight. So that's a little bit above a pound weight there. Or I'm using a small 4-pound weight. And we're going to work our wrists. So we're going to come into a seated position. And I like the seated position because it gives me a platform to come forward and let my elbows rest. And when I'm like this, when I'm leaned forward like this, I'm not just rounding my back. I'm absolutely using my body posture as a way to transform my back. So I'm holding my core. I'm not just slouched and slumped. Don't let go of your posture when you're doing your workout. So coming forward in a very precise way. Now we're going to be doing the wrist hammer action. So I'm holding this like I'm holding a hammer. In my other hand, it's empty of the weight right now, I'll have to do this one at a time, is lightly applying pressure. And you can see I'm lightly applying pressure so that I keep this forearm turned just like the bar of the weight. I'm going to dip down and lift up. And this is not an extreme action, but here's the thing. As I'm dipping down, I'll show you in the camera closer. As I'm dipping down, I'm doing my best to keep the bar of the weight lined up with my forearm, all right? So I'm not creating a movement where I'm going down and, turning. It's not like that. It's as perpendicular to the floor as I can make the action happen. Okay, so that perpendicular action is what we're after. And you may or may not feel that this is much of a challenge right now. We don't have a lot of range of motion in this, but it happens to be a movement that we don't make very often in our wrists. And so when you've done one side, you can do the other side. Now, a lot of people like to work both arms at the same time. I think that, we're just trying to make good use of our time. And I'll tell you this, if you focus on one side at a time, you will make less error in your alignment. It's because, I can watch it, I can look at it, and that's always a good technique. Look at what you're doing. Because if you're off and staring at something else, your body might just be, making a movement, but not the precise movement. And it is the precision of the action that we want, because that determines which muscle is becoming active, which groupings of muscles are working together, and how the joint is aligning, as well as sometimes the compressive effect overall to the joint structure. So it's much healthier to stay focused and increase that mind to body action. Now, when we have finished out with the wrist work on both sides, then we're starting over again, okay? We've completed a round and we're going into our second round. Now, because there is some potential of effects with the knees, I want you to be very careful about what you're doing. We've got online the Bulgarian split squats. I'm going to show you the lunge effect, which could be something that you do. Or if things are not working well for your knees today, then my recommendation is that for this first part, if you're saying, my knees aren't going to handle this, is that you elongate and you do a leg lift. And that's not avoiding effort. That's actually intensifying what's happening there in the front of the leg, especially if you leave that leg up there for a while. So leg lifts would be great in replacement of what I'm going to show you right now. But the lunge is also on the table, and especially if you say, I don't have a chair, the lunge could work. And I like us to create the lunge like this. So we stand the feet about hip distance. I'm going to step a leg back and then bend the knee so that this forward leg does not shoot over the knee. I'll get this guy out of the way and I'll show it to you again from the other direction. Okay, so we're standing and we step back, and everybody's step back is a little different. I stay on the ball of that foot. and I bring the knee down. I don't have to touch the floor, but this knee does not shoot over the ankle. I'll show you the incorrect way. Watch out for doing it this incorrect way. It said when I step back, I'm already, this knee, you see, forward. So when I come down, it's like, oh, that's miserable. That front knee is not going to appreciate that. So don't do it that way. You got to create that knee. There's like a little stop sign right there. When you come down and that front knee does not move forward. Very important. But lunges are known to be somewhat of a potential irritant to the knee, which is why, oddly enough, the Bulgarian split squat can be a great replacement for the lunge. A little bit more balancing, and the knee seems to travel forward more. I mean, that's by design, but it just isn't as much pressure. So for the Bulgarian split squat, I would take my leg, lose my balance, take my leg back up on this chair, and in that position, leaning about 45 degrees forward, I come down, and I come back up again. Now this can eventually be done holding a weight or some weights, both with this version as well as the not using a chair version. I can hold weights in my hands, step backward, and precisely come down and back up again. Even the leg lift, if you had ankle weights, you know, if you didn't feel this was strong enough, you had ankle weights, you could put ankle weights, or perhaps a small cat or dog staying down on ankles. I see that somebody's left me a message. Let's just see what someone is indicating here. Okay. Isn't keeping your body weight toward the back accomplishing what you're describing? Well, body weight toward the back as you're going into the lunge on that front heel, but we're just staying on the ball of the foot on the back heel, so there's no position as we're coming down. Yeah, it's true. I see what you mean. Putting the weight on the back of the heel does help some, but there's a lot of trouble examining and keeping the mind in the body, and we tend to shift out of position well before we're even recognizing what position we're in the first place. So keep very aware and do the thing that's right for your legs. Now we're into the upper body part. It is it's called the kettlebell lift. Maybe you're not using a kettlebell, maybe it's just a regular weight. And so whichever weight you want to use, I'm going to grab my lovely half-gallon here to act like a kettlebell. And so we start out those feet nice because we're going to go into a potential squat. I take the weight down and then I bring that and press it upward. All right. And get the back up more so you can see the top half of that. So down and upward. Okay. Or if you don't want the squat, bend the knee slightly, reach the shoulder down and reach upward. All right, if you have a kettlebell, oh gosh, that's the same technique for that. If you have hand weight, there can be a difference in the amount of weight sometimes, just the control mechanism of it. You just have to act as if it's a kettlebell. So we could squat down, and that's the palm facing the back of the body. We come up, we turn the wrist until the palm is facing up. And so technique-wise, we're just making a rotational action in our body. And if we don't want to do the part where there's a squat, we just have the knee slightly bent, we reach the shoulder down, and then we pull up into the action there. And so we don't get a lot of lifting something up above our head practice in life. Here it is with the squat. And there again. All right, so we don't have a lot of this practice in our regular life. This builds at the top of the shoulder area. Of course, I'm lifting my arm all the way up, and if you didn't feel like lifting your arm, you could just lift the arm partially. Let's just say you had a shoulder issue, and you just wanted to bring the arm up and just do a little bit of a lift. That would still count. That would still count. So that lifting action, just the action going up to any degree at all, is going to build some of the deltoid and the upper trapezius area, as well as obviously the things that are in the arm and holding that weight. So each of these, there's there's an action that is part of the activity that we're trying to create in the class, as well as the modifications. And once you know what the action is, you try and make a modification that doesn't draw you too far offline, so that you don't miss the target area. So if you know the target is to try and create sort of an upward action with the arms, you can do it with no weight at all, just down and then just coming upward. And that's one of the nice things about single arm activities, is that you can create the action without the weight, just getting that range of motion. And that's a perfectly nice action to help you rehabilitate the shoulder line. All right, so now we're ready for side of the waist again. I'm going to show you a side plank activity, because we did the side tilt, and I'll show that to you again, but I'm going to show you an alternative, because side tilt doesn't necessarily work for everyone. But the side plank could very well. You just have to be careful of things like the shoulder. And in a side plank, here's how I'll do it. There's a couple of different methods of it. I'm on my side, my forearm is turned, pointed fingers away from the body. My knees are bent because that gives me a shorter leverage principle to work with. I sink down a little bit to relax, and I push up. Now I want that shoulder right over the elbow when I create this. I'm going to come onto my knees and stretch myself upward. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you may think, oh, I don't like this. The elbow down, you want to have extra padding underneath that elbow to do the side plank. We sink down, so we come up, we have that elbow right underneath that shoulder, pushing onto the knees and coming upward. So there's the side plank. If you did not want to lift yourself up, perfectly fine. You're just down, again, forearm pressing outward, sinking down, and then just press and hold that pressure as if you were about to lift, even taking the arm up, or adding the lift up. It just adds more. And so there's a lot of shoulder action with this version. Just lift or lift all the way up. Or if you're finding not working for me, well then we've got the side tilt with or without weight. Feet spread wide, press outward, belly in, chest up, shoulders down. We create the tilt, and then this side is nice and stretched, and we just pull all the way. And that is the weight, single weight effect. And either with 2 weights or no weights in your hand, it's like this: press out, belly in, chest up, shoulders down. We create the tilt, the uplift, and the tilt. So do pay attention to how your body feels. If you prefer one technique over the other, go with your preference right now. You know, especially if you're unused to things. That's the thing. If you're not used to doing something, the best thing is to trust that your body is going to give you some wise advice on what to do and what not to do. Stick with it. Once you get a little stronger, more options become available to you. And so, and we can be strong in all of the places and still weak in certain areas. So just because you can do a lot of other exercises in some ways, we sometimes have a little bit of a weakness, a pattern that does not match up with all the other strengths that we might have. So not unusual at all. All right, so we train that side of the waist, and when you're ready to, we're going to be challenging the chest structure, either with the chest press or the push up, or I'm going to show you something that's called a plank lift. So I'm going to show all 3 of these for our round 2. The first one we worked with had 2 weights. We were reclined. We had our arms angled out at about a 45-degree angle, and we turned the weights like we were holding a bar. And we brought the arms up and towards each other, and if we wanted to, we lifted the shoulders up a little bit, and then we brought ourselves shoulders down and then elbows down back at that 45-degree angle. So that is the chest press, also affectionately called the chicken press. The arms angle out, so like chicken wings. If indeed you don't have 2 weights, or you want to do something that's a little bit more intense, I showed you the action at the wall. It's the hands a little below the shoulder height, pressing palms toward each other, elbows angled out as you come toward the wall. Keep your core engaged, keep your body traveling as if a solid plank, not bending at the waist. There we go. Just coming forward. If I wanted that to be more intense, I could step my feet further back in the action and create it like that. If I wanted to be more intense, I could use a kneeling position, pelvis forward, hands whatever width I want, but the elbows flare out, and when I come up, I'm like pressing my hands toward that midline and bring myself back up. But then there's also something else that we could do, and I'll show it in sort of a increased activity versus reduced activity. If I'm in this position, placing hand more toward the center, hands more narrow than that, then what I do is I create what's called a plank lift. So I just take the arm, transfer it to one side, and stretch the other side upward. That would also be quite possible, kneeling, but in a tabletop, just getting used to the twist of the body while supporting the weight on one side. And as well, definitely, that action of the plank lift could be done at the wall, stabilizing, and then just creating the reach back like so. As well as, you know, the height of the position you were at the wall would determine a lot of things. So 3 different things that we could do for this work that we're trying for the chest. And so our target muscle, pectoralis major, but all the auxiliary muscles there in the deltoid, the biceps, the triceps as well, even the back of the body and the core too. So almost nothing is in absolute isolation. So we're working to gain strong activation of each and everything we do. And so you do that work of chest press and mingling the stuff together, acting like this is a buffet and choosing a little bit of something and a little bit of something else. Great idea. Our target goal is to create a number of repetitions that satisfyingly fatigues us. And I target that number at about 10 so that we slow way down in our actions and develop more of a smooth activity that tends to engage more of our muscle fibers instead of quick and rapid movements. So we're trying for a slower action to engage more. And when you've got your chest finished with that action, hey, it's time for the monster walk or the side monster walk, and I'll remind us of those actions. So the side stepping, there's 2 different levels of it. So, you know, I can start off with my feet relatively close together and go wide to narrow to wide to narrow to wide to narrow. I do keep my knees slightly bent, and I would consider one pass, however many steps I took, to be counted as one. Or I could do it as sort of a tick-tock. I keep wide, and it's just tick-tock, back and forth. That's a little bit more rapid. Probably, if you have pets in the house, they probably find this one to be a lot more exciting to witness as you're doing that. And then there's the classic monster walk. So we start with the feet relatively narrow, and we step backward, and we step to that backward. We step forward at that angle, stepping forward. You can see I'm going at about a 45-degree angle. So that's the easier monster walk. The deeper monster walk is I'm coming into more of a crouch, stepping while I'm in the crouch. Careful of your knees. You don't want to do anything that's going to make your knee unhappy with you. And it's not just tough it through. Those knees are pretty much non-negotiable. You've got to make them happy. When we're doing leg work, there's using a lot of oxygen. Keep that breathing deep. Don't hold your breath. And know that a lot of your fatigue is going to occur once you finish the activity. You'll have a more rapid heartbeat. And so that becomes one of our high intensity intervals. And boy, if you have a strap around your legs, this is a lot more. Even the slightest bit of resistance increased would be a lot more work with that monster walk kind of action. So whichever one that we do, doing that for repetition about 10 on each side, it's gonna make us aware. It definitely is. And when you get done monster walking, it's time to work those wrists again. And so I'm going to choose the chair format for the wrist work. And a weight is very good. Even without a weight, just the movement of the arm is really nice. So I'm going to come into a position, lean forward. My elbow is on my knee. This is going to be a palm up wrist curl. And so not only is the bar of the weight now parallel to the floor, the bones of my forearm are now parallel to the floor too. And so I'm going to hold the weight in my hands. Now I'm separating my feet out because it's quite possible to drop the weight when you're going to roll it down into your fingers. So I'm going to roll down into the fingers and try not to drop it. And then I'm going to pull it up into the hand. And once it's in my hand, I'm going to lift my wrist up if that's comfortable. And that ending part where we lift the wrist up, there may be a very slight turn of the wrist, but as long as it doesn't involve your entire forearm, you can allow that action. That would be very natural to your range of motion. So we have our feet separated because the dropping the weight usually, as long as there's no important thing underneath us, it's no big deal. It's very loud, and it does happen. It does happen. So if it happens to you, hey, you're awake now, and hopefully have not dropped it on anything, especially not your own foot. So this wrist curl, really great for the entire hand structure, good for the forearms, good for the elbow, even good for the shoulder. And a fairly simple thing, great. If you've got some tennis elbow going on, stuff like that happen in the elbow, this is really great. This is a really good workout. We're going to then carefully transfer to the other hand. And again, my other arm is just, it's not holding, it's just making sure that I notice what I'm doing and I'm looking at what I'm doing, because that gives me a greater likelihood of doing the very thing that I want to be doing, instead of my body just taking an unconscious line, which it will do. You give your body a chance to become unconscious of itself, and it will very happily modify you, create something different than the target that we were after. Very good. I'm going to finish out on this side. We're going to go through a third round, although we are getting closer toward the end, and if we don't finish everything, that's just one of the things that sometimes happens. We work out for an hour, we may not accomplish all these things. Let's see what someone sent me here as far as a question about that. Is it okay to extend the hand fully if we're not using a weight? Absolutely. Yeah, if you want those fingers to just open up completely, but don't get into a bad habit. You're holding weight and go, oh yeah, I dropped it. So yeah, fully like that. But the movement of the wrist, even without a weight, is great range of motion training. We're starting over again, so it's time for either as I said, you got 3 options, and you may be tired by now, and you may be saying, I'm looking for that lesser option because I'm already rather tired. So we elongate, and we could be doing just leg lifts, and goodness knows those leg lifts, especially if you hold that leg up there for like 15 or 20 minutes. Oh my Lord. And then the other side, and it's like, oh, hello, fatigue. You do that, that's really great. The legs could be turned out. Oh, hello, inner quad. Hi. Nice to meet you. Really good training to help you. You can turn this with your legs turned in. Ooh, yeah. Outer hip. My goodness, we worked you earlier too. Okay, so that's really good. We could also do our chair-based Bulgarian split squat. Possibly we're getting a little bit more comfortable with our balance now that we're knowing what it is that we want to do. And so the lean forward at about a 45 degree, and then coming down and up like so. This knee does go a bit forward, but not extremely forward. And you got to negotiate with what the back leg is doing too. And remember, if you want, you can have the full buffet line of things. Just do a little bit of each thing. Why not? Tendency is when we get tired, we tend to increase the speed of things. It's almost unavoidable. Try and go as slow as you can. And 10 becomes sort of a goal. Here's the lunging action. If we were doing the lunge, we would step backward, balance on the ball of the foot, dropping straight down and back up again, and then stepping forward. So I don't do this as across the room. You sometimes see that people doing it in a gym. I see really poor alignment when I see people doing it in a walk method. And instead of stepping forward, definitely having us step backward. And I don't have somebody just stay on one side and do a whole bunch, because the stepping forward and stepping back are part of the training, very useful part of the training. But of course, modify to your comfort level with that. When we've done that, it's time for kettlebell lifting. I'll just show with the weight. And this is the one where we have ourselves nice and wide. If we're going to do the just the gentler method. We're reaching, the knees are slightly bent, there's no real squat, and then we're coming up with that nice little twist, down and up. We'll do it on the other side to show it. So there's that down move and up move. All right. And then just a reminder, if you do have something that works like a kettlebell, you can hold that in your hand. The squat, down, and then we're turning until the palm is up, and then down. So that's the squat method with something that is like a kettlebell. Okay. And then we're continuing on with those. Some things you will find as you're doing them, it's just a great experience. Your body's like, yes, I've been wanting that. And it's great release. You may think, I'll do 15 or 16 or 20 or 30. Hold back, especially with something new. You don't know how your body's going to react to it in the next 48 hours. So little light work at first when you're with something new, and then determine how your body really feels about it, because it doesn't always let you know. When we have done our kettlebell lift, it's time to work the side of our waist. We could start with weights or no weights at all, pushing out on those legs, pull in the core, chest up and shoulders down. It's the side tilt, but the pelvis stays at the center. And the side tilt, that pelvis remaining center. We could do that with 2 weights. No weights. We could have a single weight action, same thing, only we build up into what is the pull away from the weight. That's a nice, when we do things one-sidedly, it's a nice awkward thing for the body, really engages it. And then we've got the side plank action. We sink down, we make sure that shoulder is directly over the elbow before we either stretch up or actually lift ourselves up. And if you're feeling really connected, you can take that upper leg off if you're saying, yeah, I really want to feel a lot more. Let me see the question that someone has asked. I can answer something there. Is this the one that has presses from the walls and alternative? Yes, indeed. Good catch there. Yep. If I want to do it, although the press of the wall is for the shoulder and not necessarily for the side of the waist, we'd have our elbow head about the shoulder height. We'd sink and then we push. I suppose if you took your arm out and stretched a little bit more, it would give you a little bit more action at the side of the waist. So this is the one where we sink. Whereas trying to move our shoulder blade away, and you could just create a little bit of an action like that to get just a little bit more out of the body using the wall work. So lots of alternatives with that, but I would also say if the side plank didn't work for you, the best thing to do would be to do the side tilting action, because that standing movement is going to target our muscle. The wall work is great for the muscle under the shoulder blade, known as the serratus, to train the shoulder. But again, it's really whatever your intention is to develop in that. All right, we're coming up on our final few minutes here. And so I'm just going to go over, instead of the monster walk and the wrist curl, and you can do those on your own here. Let's go over indeed the chest press actions. And so I'll start us with the action at the wall. And there are a couple of different ones that we can do. The hands below the level of the shoulder, the simple wall-based push-up. The palms are pressing toward the middle as the elbows flare out. And then we come back from that. If you wanted to add the plank lift after you did the push-up, that adds a nice little activation. You can do that with the hands lower down the wall. And let me tell you, that does feel like a lot more work because your body weight is greater against the arms. So if the hands are further down the wall when you're creating the action, that is certainly a little more intense. if I was going to be doing floor-based work, I've got a couple of weights on the back, the elbows angled out at 45 degrees, knees bent back neutral. And then I'm bringing the arms up and toward the center, a little bit of a reach effect. And then coming out to the side. There is the floor press effect. Yep. And then also at the floor, but not using the weights, would be the, we got the, we talked about that tabletop, and the tabletop with just the plank lift. We've got that action. But we've also got the kneeling plank push-up, where we come down, we press our hands toward the center. So there's the simple push-up. Or you could transition that, adding on the plank lift afterwards. So all of those really good. When you've done that, let's do a little bit of a warm down, putting the body on the back. And arms out to the side, side to side. Now you may say, no, I want to do the monster walk, or I want to do that wrist work again, and that's perfectly fine. You may continue on, but always when you finish, it's good to be on your back, rocking the knees from side to side at a minimum, stretching the arms alongside the head, elongate, putting the hands in the back of the leg to stretch the hamstrings a little bit, always very good. So the warm down is a very important part of your workout, as well as the way that we finish by consuming our protein, that 30 grams of protein. We want to bring that in within an hour of finishing the class, and 30 grams is easy to get. It is your 3 to 4 ounces of chicken. It's your 4 to 5 ounces of red meat. It is your 6 ounces of fish or fattier meats like ham or sausage. It could be a cup of cottage cheese, or it could be mixtures of things. Eggs are great protein, most biologically valuable, and a single egg is only 6 grams of protein. A cup of milk is 8 grams, and an ounce of cheese is somewhere between 5 to 9 grams. Vegetables, so for example, rice and beans. Have a cup of rice and a cup of beans together would be 20 grams, but because they're not as biologically valuable, they are in the body considered maybe about 12 grams of protein. So if you're a strict vegan, you have to eat a lot more of the plant protein because you don't have any of the animal protein to help your body absorb that.